Hey everybody, happy Saturday. That was weird. It's my first live that is going to be a little bit longer, so I'm a little nervous and don't know how to act. So you're here for a show. But because I'm a little bit nervous, I'm going to pull a little Keely Martinez tip. Spearmint, the oil of confident speech. If you guys ever just feel like ace, I'm telling you, spearmint's the best. A lot of people love peppermint, and I know that's one of the most popular oils from doTERRA, but I love spearmint. It reminds me of like juicy fruit. You know when you grew up and you had that like gum, like a spearmint gum, juicy fruit gum? That's what it reminds me of. Anyways, I absolutely love it. So add that to your list if you don't have it, because it goes really great with like balance or like a tangerine, because it's super, super sweet and super good. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is my naturopath visit. So first, I should do this disclaimer thing. I'm not a medical doctor. I have zero medical training other than a heck ton of research and obsession with, just getting healthier. But I wanted to share what I went through with my naturopath yesterday, because she actually had some tips that I think are wildly applicable to everybody and that might be helpful to you. First tip, so you know how sometimes you go to a doctor, or typically when you go to a doctor for your annual physical, you go to your doctor, they do the physical, then they order all the labs, and then you just get an email that's like, your labs look normal or your labs don't look normal and you need to do these follow-ups. This time was the first time I actually went and got my labs first, so that I could actually have them printed with me when I actually went to see my naturopath, which was awesome. It was just, the conversation was so much richer, because typically you get your results and it's like this super broad range of normal, which doesn't mean anything. But this allowed me to be like, hey, let's talk about the nuances. Like, this looks like it's in the range, but it's kind of on the lower end. Should I change something? Would you do anything? What can I do? And then through asking a million questions, had a lot of really great tips. So let me start with that. So get your labs first. So what I did was a full hormone panel and a vitamin D test, because it's frickin' Seattle. So you better be testing your vitamin D once a year, because we're all low. Okay. So, and I'll talk about the ranges that are important there and things that you can do. And then just the normal full hormone panel. And then I'll talk through some of those results too. Okay. So, first, Dr. Steph, who's the best, said that my hormones looked amazing. And she was like, if you wanted to have a baby, you could get pregnant right now. And while that sounds wonderful and great, we are 2 and done, and I have blocked tubes. So maybe my hormones are okay, but with blocked tubes, I'm not making any more babies. And also the inn is full. Like, I'm barely keeping people alive right now. I'm barely keeping myself alive. And so there is no more babies coming to this house. And that looks great. And I honestly, if top tips for balancing your hormones, and I actually teach a class on this, and I'm in the process of making it from being an in-person home class to a virtual class. And I'm going to do that in February. So if anyone's interested in that virtual hormone balancing class, send me a DM, because I'll make sure that you get the invite to that, because you have to do these things. So one, lifelong vitality, one of the best things I ever did for balancing my hormones, reducing toxic load in my house, cleaning up my makeup, my green cleaning supplies, no candles with fake fragrances, no anything with fake fragrances, clean water, organic pesticide-free foods, washing our fruit, you name it, like just reducing the amount of toxins in the house, the air doctor to make sure that we're purifying the air, all of those things. Then you also need to make sure that you're just detoxing your body. So whenever you have actual toxic load in your body, you need to make sure that you're getting that crap out. So I do a lot of detox rituals, Epsom salt baths, saunas, cleanses. I have a regular ritual of taking essential oils internally to make sure that I'm constantly taking that stuff out of my body. And so I talked through a bunch of that stuff in the class. So I really, really credit that to why my hormones are actually in a pretty good place right now. So a couple of things. Vitamin D, I take a lot of vitamin D. I have it in my supplements, but I also have it as a standalone like drop that I take in addition to my supplements. And the normal range, this is why these ranges are so crazy. The normal range is from 30 to 100 NGs per ml. And I was at 42. And I am outside, I take regular walks, I take the extra vitamin D, but apparently I'm not taking enough. So what she recommended was that I up my vitamin D, because I was taking like 3 to 5 UIs I use a day, 3 to 5,000 I use a day. But she recommended that I do 5,000 for 5 days a week and then up it to 10,000 for 2 days a week. And so I'm going to try that. She also said something interesting, because I said, hey, my kids take extra vitamin D, how much should they have? And she said the range varies greatly, especially with children, different build types. So she's like, definitely in the 1,000 range around here. But then she said something that piqued my interest, which is the darker the skin, the more you need. And hello, I have Mexican babies. My husband's Mexican and they have darker skin. It didn't even occur to me that that mattered. So there you go. Now you know. Darker skin, more vitamin D. Okay, you can overdose. You can't overdose. You can get too much vitamin D. And it's tricky because the symptoms of having too much vitamin D are often similar to the ones of not having enough. But I think it's very, very difficult to get too much. But if you start to feel like, achiness, vomiting, kidney stones, those are signs of potentially having too much vitamin D. And one more important thing about vitamin D is make sure your vitamin D supplement is mixed with K2. So I've recommended children's vitamin D before. It has K2 mixed into it. Same with the Thorne adult vitamin D that we take. It also has K2 in it. Okay, so let me take a quick sip of my tea. Cute mug. Actually, I can. I'm settling into this live. I'm getting a little less nervous. What else? Okay. Anxiety. Okay. So, some of you know that I've had catastrophic anxiety that really started when Charlie had that long year battle with croup, constant trips to the hospital, all the, crap she was taking to get that under control. And then she had that accident where she bonked her head and had stitches. And it was just like a dramatic, decline after that. And I've been working really, really hard on that. But, and I am doing much better, and I'm continuing to work on that, make sure that my thoughts aren't driving my feelings and I'm not in this loop of just like crazy anxiety. But one thing is true right now is that we're all just riding a little high, right? Like the pandemic has us stressed out. There's either pandemic fears or there's children at home and people are homeschooling, and just stress is at an all-time high. And whether it's stress or anxiety induced from, whatever it might be from your past, it causes adrenal fatigue, right? Your body's constantly on a high and trying to deal with all this extra cortisone in his body, and it just can't handle it. So a couple of things I talk a lot about the rituals of detoxing, which helps with some of that stress on the adrenals, but a couple of other things we talked about with the doctor. You can actually exercise too much. And you know how they always say, like, listen to your body. And then there's people who just push through that because they're like, no, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to feel great. And, you can actually exercise too much. And when they say listen to your body, it's because you can actually go into overload. And if you exercise too much and you totally tap out your adrenal glands, you can basically hit rock bottom and like pure burnout. Like can't get out of bed, days, months, sometime a year to like work your way back out of that. So when you're actually like, oh, I don't feel like hopping on the Peloton today, or I don't feel like going for a run, you know what actually sounds good? Just like walking or taking yoga. That actually is your body telling you something, and pay attention to it. Don't be like, no, I need to like burn off that glass of wine. You're doing more damage in the long run than good. So listen to that signal. So yeah, that's a big one. Okay. Here's a really interesting one. Just settle up, people, because we're going to talk about periods. So, I thought I was going through menopause. Turns out I'm not even close. I'm 41. My mom was 54 when she went through menopause. And I called her and I was like, turns out I think I'm going to go through it in like the next year at 41, 42. And I was wrong because that's not what my results showed. The reason why I thought I was going through menopause is because my periods have been pretty light, which is the polar opposite of what happened to my mom. My mom had terrible fibroids, had a couple of very serious accidents from passing out from bleeding so much that after a few different DNCs, eventually had to have a hysterectomy because the bleeding was so intense. And I've had the opposite. I've had very light periods, and I have, I don't know if any of you have this is kind of weird. A normal period, you have like your period and it's, intense for a day or two, and then it trickles, or 3, and then it like trickles off and you have spotting for a few days, right? And it slowly starts to tail off. I have a backwards period. My period is like spotting for anywhere from 2 to 3 this week. 5 days where I was like, and then like not spotting for 5 days, where I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have a period because naturally I'm going through menopause and I'm just losing my period. No. Then the period came. I legit have a backwards period that goes really, really light for a few days. Then I have like 1-2 days of like good flow, okay flow, and then it just like dies off. What that actually is, and I remembered that I actually had this, and when I was trying to get pregnant with Ellie, my oldest. And when I did that, I remember thinking, am I like miscarrying a week before my period? Is that why I'm having bleeding a week before my period? It's actually a sign of low progesterone. And so I think that's actually what's causing that. Turns out with Ellie and Charlie, I actually had blocked tubes. And so that's why I was not getting pregnant with them. Not that I was miscarrying, but it was because I actually was never getting pregnant in the first place. And so we had to go down the path of IVF. So still today, so it's been a year since I got my IUD out. It's the first time, other than in order to conceive, it's the first time since I was 16 that I've had no birth control. So my body's probably like, I have no freaking idea how to actually regulate a cycle because I've just been on chemical hormones since, for whatever, 25 years now, if I'm doing the math right. And so, what I'm going to do in order to try to up my progesterone. Some people might be like, oh, but your periods are light, so who cares, like, if it's backwards. If I continue down this path, what can happen is that as you age and as you do go through perimenopause and menopause, all of the hormones tank. So think about it this way. Estrogen kind of takes this slower decline. Progesterone takes a much steeper decline. And my progesterone is already a little bit on the lower side. And so the gap there is called estrogen dominance, and estrogen dominance can fuck you up. Let me just tell you, okay? It is not what you want, and for the love, those of you who suffer with that, I am so sorry. I know that it is so difficult. But estrogen dominance, let's just kind of talk through some of the symptoms. I wrote them down here somewhere in my notes because I wanted to talk about that. Super heavy period, can't lose weight, messes with your blood glucose, causes endometriosis, really tough. And so I really want to work hard to get my natural progesterone levels up. And so for me, that means adding in some adaptogens. Maca, more chaga tea, which is, I have it in frozen. It's like a little tea chunks. You can make it in your crock pot. It's just a nice beverage. It's, like all those things, it tastes how it tastes. And ashwagandha. So I'm going to try some of those. The problem with adaptogens is that it can get a little stimulating. And so some of you may know that I quit coffee recently because even though I've been a coffee drinker all my life, it started to cause like heart racing and more anxiety than I needed. And so I switched to matcha green tea, which has been awesome. Loving it, feeling much better on that. And so as I start to add in some of these adaptogens to help my progesterone levels go up, I'm going to actually kind of take a look and make sure that I'm not feeling like anxious again, and just balance that out. I think ashwagandha of all of them is the least stimulating. So I'm going to probably start with that and then try the maca after that. Okay, a couple more things I wanted to talk about. Thanks for hanging with me still. Another sip of my tea. One thing I asked about is that I have these little spots that I get underneath. Not spots, they're like almost like little red dots, red bumps. You can't really see them. It's not like swollen. It's literally like the size of a pin nail, red little bumps that I get from time to time. And I was like convinced that it was either from sleeping on my face in my pillow or from dairy or gluten or sugar or something. I was certain that it was in my diet. And something interesting that Dr. Steph said, she was like, it might be Pacific Northwest fungus. And she asked me if it's worse in the winter than it is in the summer. And I wasn't sure because I don't pay attention enough to that. Like I've been so wrapped around the thinking that it's related to my diet. So I've been paying attention to what it's like when I eat. I don't pay attention to it seasonally. And so for those of you who live in the Pacific Northwest, when it gets really wet and cold and dark here, that causes the whatever Pacific Northwest fungus, I actually have to research this, to get worse. Lyme disease. You guys might know somebody who has Lyme disease. This climate is really, really tough on people with Lyme disease. And so I actually know someone, a friend of a friend, who chose to move to, I think, Bend, Oregon, where it's just a lot drier, where the climate is more desert-like. There's a lot less moisture because they feel better in that climate because of the lack of this like fungusy kind of stuff that proliferates in the cold and wet. So I'm going to do a little bit of research on that because I am really curious. Ellie more than anybody sneezes quite a bit, especially when she wakes up in the morning. And I'm just curious if there's, some sort of fungus thing going on around here. So I'm going to check that out. Even though we have 2 ear doctors running, you never know. Okay, the last one. Julio was like, please don't talk about poop on your live. And I was like, I got to talk about poop on my live because I'm a health account and poop's important. Okay, so you may know that our gut is our second brain, third brain, whatever they call it. It's a brain. And our gut health, the microbiome in our stomach, the bacteria in our stomach and the yeast in our stomach control some ridiculous percentage of our emotions and our immune system. I think it's like 80% or 90% of our immune system is controlled through our gut. And if the balance of good and bad bacteria in our gut is off, it can create a whole cascade of stuff in your body that is bad. Like everything from like immune issues and emotional issues to cancers and heart disease. It's terrible. It's important to have that bacteria in your gut well balanced. So you might have heard like candida is like a yeast overgrowth in your gut. And typically there are a couple of ways that the balance can be off. One is poor diet. Bad bacteria thrives on sugar. It loves sugar. And it will eat that sugar and it will just grow like gangbusters and basically nudge out all the good bacteria. And so you're just completely off balance. The other way that happens is if you are on antibiotics and, antibiotics wipes out everything. And if you don't have, if you're not being hardcore about putting a probiotic in your body after that and limiting sugar, then again, your bad bacteria will take off before your good bacteria has a chance. And so you definitely don't want that either. And then the other thing is there's so many antibiotics and hormones in our food supply. And that's one really important reason to actually purchase organic if you can, or follow the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15. Because those antibiotics that are actually antibiotics, that's not true, because antibiotics are actually in animals, not really in our plant supply. So ignore I said that. But and even cows that are actually grass-fed, they get pregnant, they lactate. All the hormones and stuff are going to be in them. Then you've got all the extra antibiotics that come in cows that are not organically raised. And those transfer into us when we eat them, right? And so by, even if you're not taking antibiotics, they come into our bodies through the food. Hello. Oh, it's so nice to have friends. They come into our bodies and then they wipe out our own bacteria because it's just in that food chain. And so it's really, really important to have that good microbiome balance in your stomach. And so the poop test. I've been doing a bunch of spit test, all these things, trying to figure out, if I've got the right balance of bacteria in my stomach. And it's really hard to tell. And I'm dying to know what is in there because it's so important to have that balance. And so I'm getting the poop test. So what happens is I was like, do I have to come and poop in the office? And Dr. Steph's like, no, what are you going to sit at the office and wait all day? She's the best. She's funny. You're just not just going to sit here and wait till you have to go. And so they send you the poop test to your house and you poop and you actually send it back in the mail. You don't even take it to a lab here. There's the magic of the post. You put your poop back in an envelope and you send it to a lab and just, you've done it, Mal? Oh my gosh. Okay, what did it tell you? I'm dying to know what's in my poop. But it's a great test. It's going to tell you the balance of bacteria. A couple of things that are interesting if you're thinking about doing it. A couple of things you can do. One, cut out, if you're taking digestive enzymes, cut them out for 2 weeks before. I didn't know this. I take Terrazyme 2 or 3 times a day. I live on digestive enzymes. They are super important to breaking down your food and helping you absorb all the supplements that you're taking and all the nutrients in your food. So I have to cut that out for 2 weeks. And also I can't take a probiotic for 2 weeks because what you're trying to figure out is what is your natural gut flora like? So I'm going to take it and I'm going to report back and tell you what my poop says. Really, really important because that poop, honestly, especially with emotions, I don't want anything extra adding to my anxiety. I don't need that shit. And so I want to make sure that I've got the right gut flora there. One more quick thing that I learned. So however many of you have anxiety or just stress, who doesn't have stress right now, a lot of people really feel their stress and tension in their shoulders and their necks and their back. And I certainly do. But me, it's all jaw and all tongue. And I didn't know this, but the normal position of your tongue is actually on the bottom of your mouth. Imagine freaking that. Your tongue is actually just supposed to be relaxed and resting on the bottom of your mouth. I didn't know that. I'm a tongue thruster. So my tongue is always plucking at the front of my mouth. It's either pushing against the top of my mouth, the roof of my mouth, the front of my teeth. When I sleep, I'm I had Invisalign, so thank goodness I have a mouth guard at night. Full jaw clenching. If I can manage my stress during the day, it at night for sure while I'm sleeping and I'm dreaming all the crazy things coming out, my jaw just completely tenses up. And funny truth is that a lot of men, one of the main reasons why they snore and have sleep apnea is because that shit doesn't bug them. And they go to bed and they just sleep like normal human beings. And their tongue completely relaxes and it sort of falls and rests on the back of their throat and they snore. That doesn't happen to me because my tongue is trying to escape my body while I'm sleeping, apparently. So she gave me a few biofeedback breathing exercises before bed to try. And I've been talking a lot about doing just getting a meditation practice going this year. And so I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do it because I'm tired of this constant tension in my mouth just as a result of stress. It's just, crappy. Okay, Mal says, mine told me I had a gut infection. She treated it with all different supplements and now I maintain with digestive enzyme powder. It's totally worth it. See? How would you even freaking know, right? It's one of the hardest things to tell about when you're sick and the incredible thing about functional medicine. So if you really want to explore and understand the root cause of any illness, check out functional medicine and a functional medicine practitioner in your area, because they're looking for a root cause. And so most doctors you go in, of course, are like, I've got this. And they're like, here's this pill to take care of that symptom. Whereas, and that can just, then if you never treat the root cause, you can just get into a cycle of constantly being on meds, and that can be hard to get out of. And sometimes it can cause other issues in your body that can be really, really hard in the long term. And so, just got my social settings kicked me out because it told me I'm over my limit, which means I must be like on this like 15th minute of this video. So bear with me, wrapping up here. But I want to know what the heck's going on. I want to know if I've got a gut infection. Sometimes folks who have traveled, people who have traveled, my brother picked up a freaking weird ass bacteria in Lebanon when he was traveling. He actually was working there for like 4 or 5 months, picked something up. It wreaked havoc for like years until finally a doctor was like, have you traveled abroad? Have you lived abroad? What have you done abroad? Have you ever, done X, Y, and Z? And then they did some testing and figured it out. Oh my gosh, it's this like weird parasite that he had in his stomach. So highly, highly recommend doing, if you've got stuff and you just like can't figure it out, the gut is often a place where, something can be going on. So I'll do the poop test. I'll report back. Looks like Mal had a great experience, which is totally crazy. And then I'll let you know. Okay. So quick wrap up. Again, if you're going to do your annual physical, to have the doctor call out labs before so you can take them in with you, have a much, much richer conversation than if you're then just reviewing it through results through email. Vitamin D, I have to up mine even though I'm already taking a lot. This Seattle crap is just not good for us and we need a lot more. So I'm going to 5,000 IUs for 5 days a week and 10,000 IUs for 2 days a week. Kids with darker skin need more. Again, didn't know that. So, 1,000 IUs at least for the kiddos. Anxiety, jaw clenching, backwards period, low progesterone. So to help increase my progesterone a little bit, adding in the adaptogens, ashwagandha, chaga tea, maca. Got a research Pacific Northwest fungus and what the heck that is and whether or not that's around here and in my house. It's around here. I just need to figure out how much of it is in my house. And then the poop test. Okay, friends. Hope that was helpful. And then if you are interested in balancing your hormone tips, I'm going to take my in-person class and shorten it up and make it a virtual class in February. And so if you want to attend a hormone balancing class, natural hormone balancing class, then DM me and I will send you a link to sign up. Okay. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Bye, Mal. Talk to you guys later. Bye.